try to sleep, said Sue. I must call Berman up to get my model for the old hermit miner. I'll not be gone a minute. Don't try to move till I come back. Old Berman was a painter who lived on the ground floor beneath them. He was past 60 and had a Michelangelo's Moses beard curling down from the head of a satyr along the body of an imp. Berman was a failure in art. 40 years he had wielded the brush without getting near enough to touch the hem of his mistress's robe. He had always been about to paint a masterpiece, but had never yet begun it. For several years he had painted nothing except now and then a daub in the line of commerce or advertising. He earned a little by serving as a model to those young artists in the colony who could not pay the price of a professional. He drank gin to excess, and still talked of his coming masterpiece. For the rest, he was a fierce little old man who scoffed terribly at softness in anyone, and who regarded himself as a special mastiff in waiting to protect the two young artists in the studio above. The Italian artist Michelangelo has a famous statue of Moses with a long flowing beard. A satyr is a Greek mythological creature that's half man and half goat, and an imp is a tiny demon or a mischievous child. So if you can imagine all those, a large head with a long flowing beard on a tiny body. So his mistress is art. So he's never come close to touching his mistress' fine art. Daub in this case is to paint unskillfully, to kind of poke at something with a brush, and a mastiff is a breed of large, powerful dogs. Sue found Berman smelling strongly of juniper berries in his dimly lighted den below. In one corner was a blank canvas on an easel that had been waiting there for 25 years to receive the first line of the masterpiece. She told him of Johnsey's fancy, and how she feared she would, indeed, light and fragile as a leaf herself, float away when her slight hold upon the world grew weaker. A fancy in this case is imagination of fantasy, and slight is minimal, so she has a slight hold on life. Old Berman, with his eyes red, plainly streaming, shouted his contempt and derision for such idiotic imaginings. Plainly streaming, it could mean crying or tearing. Was, he cried, is there people in the world with the foolishness to die because leaves they drop off from the confounded vine? I have not heard of such a thing. No, I will not pose as a model for your fool hermit thunderhead. Why do you allow that silly pussiness to come into their brain? Ach, that poor little Miss Yonsey. So confounded, in this case, is damned. Dunderhead is a dunce or a blockhead or a numbskull. Translation, what, he cried, are there people in the world with the foolishness to die because leaves drop off from a confounded vine? I have not heard such a thing. No, I will not pose as a model for your fool hermit dunderhead. Why do you allow that silly business to come in her brain? Oh, that poor little Miss Johnsey. She is very ill and weak, said Sue, and the fever has left her mind morbid and full of strange fancies. Very well, Mr. Berman. If you do not care to pose for me, you needn't. But I think you are a horrid old flibberty-gibbet. Fancies, again, in this case, imagination of fantasy, and a flibberty-gibbet is a chatty or flighty, lightheaded person. Someone's chatting constantly. You are just like a woman, yelled Berman. Who said I will not pose? Go on, I come mit you. For half an hour I have been trying to say that I am ready to pose. Gott, this is not any place in which one so good as Miss Yonsey shall lie sick. Some day I will paint a masterpiece, and we shall all go away. Gott, yes. So just translation. You are just like a woman, yelled Berman. Who said that I will not pose? Go on, I come with you. For half an hour I have been trying to say that I am ready to pose. God, this is not any place in which one so good as Miss Yonsey shall lie sick. Some day I will paint a masterpiece, and we shall all go away. God, yes. Johnsey was sleeping when they went upstairs. Sue pulled the shade down to the windowsill and motioned Berman into the other room. In there they peered out the window fearfully at the ivy vine. Then they looked at each other for a moment without speaking. A persistent cold rain was falling, mingled with snow. Berman, in his old blue shirt, took his seat as the hermit miner on an upturned kettle for a rock. When Sue woke from an hour's sleep the next morning, she found Johnsey with dull, wide-opened eyes, staring at the drawn green shade. "Pull it up, I want to see," she ordered in a whisper. Wearily, Sue obeyed. But lo, after the beating rain and fierce gusts of wind that had endured throughout the livelong night, there yet stood out against the brick wall one ivy leaf. It was the last one on the vine, still dark green near its stem, but with its serrated edges tinted with the yellow of dissolution and decay. It hung bravely from a branch some 20 feet above the ground. So lo is to look or see, implying surprise. Lo and behold. Live long means low or entire, especially when tediously long, slow, or passing. There's a song about all my livelong days. Dissolution in this case is the process of dissolving into elements. "It is the last one," said Johnsy. "I thought it would surely fall during the night. I heard the wind. It will fall today, and I shall die at the same time." Today. In this case, he seems to use the hyphen as a pause, but then in later cases, I realize that doesn't apply. So again, I'm not sure about his style. Consult a grammarian. "Dear, dear," said Sue, leaning her worn face down to the pillow. "Think of me if you won't think of yourself. What would I do?" So worn in this case is wearied and exhausted. But Johnsy did not answer. The lonesomest thing in all the world is a soul when it is making ready to go on its mysterious far journey. The fancy seemed to possess her more strongly as one by one the ties that bound her to friendship and earth were loosed. Loosed in this case means released suddenly like an arrow as opposed to loosened. In some European languages, instead of shooting an arrow, you loose an arrow, which is when you let go and it shoots forward. The day wore away, and even through the twilight they could see the lone ivy leaf clinging to its stem against the wall. And then, with the coming of the night, the north wind was again loosed, while the rain still beat against the windows and pattered down from the low Dutch eaves. When it was light enough, Johnsy, the merciless, commanded that the shades be raised. The ivy leaf was still there. So the eaves are the edge of a roof that projects beyond the wall. Johnsy lay for a long time looking at it, and then she called to Sue, who was stirring her chicken broth over the gas stove. "I've been a bad girl, Sooty," said Johnsy. "Something has made that last leaf stay there to show me how wicked I was. It is a sin to want to die. You may bring me a little broth now, and some milk with a little port in it. And no, bring me a hand mirror first, and then pack some pillows about me. I will sit up and watch you cook." An hour later she said, "Sooty, someday I hope to paint the Bay of Naples." So at that time, a poor house in New York City might not have electricity, but they probably had gas piped in for lamps and cooking. But before they mentioned the chafing dish, so minor conflict here, but I don't think it's important. And the hand mirror is just showing now she's interested in herself. She's interested in how she looks, and she is regaining her interest in life. The doctor came in the afternoon, and Sue had an excuse to go into the hallway as he left. "Even chances," said the doctor, taking Sue's thin, shaking hand in his. "With good nursing you'll win. And now I must see another case I have downstairs. Behrman his name is. Some kind of an artist, I believe. Pneumonia too. He's an old, weak man, and the attack is acute. There's no hope for him, but he goes to the hospital today to be made more comfortable." The next day the doctor said to Sue, "She's out of danger. You've won. Nutrition and care now, that's all." So acute in this case means sharp or severe, extremely serious. And that afternoon Sue came to the bed where Johnsy lay, contentedly knitting a very blue and very useless woolen shoulder scarf, and put one arm around her, pillows and all. "I have something to tell you, White Mouse," she said. "Mr. Behrman died of pneumonia today in the hospital. He was ill only 2 days. The janitor found him on the morning of the first day in his room downstairs, helpless with pain. His shoes and clothes were wet through and icy cold. They couldn't imagine where he had been on such a dreadful night, and then they found a lantern, still lighted, and a ladder that had been dragged from its place, and some scattered brushes, and a palette with green and yellow colors mixed on it, and, look out the window, dear, at the last ivy leaf on the wall. Didn't you wonder why it never fluttered or moved when the wind blew? Ah, darling, it's Behrman's masterpiece. He painted it there the night that the last leaf fell." The end. I hope you enjoyed this reading. I apologize for the poor quality of this, our first video. Feel free to comment on the production or with suggestions for future readings. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.